Good evening, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Fort Wayne Community Schools Board of Trustees. We begin each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And roll call members.
Good evening, Steve Corona from the 5th District.
Glenna Yale, 2nd District.
Maria Norman, Member at Large.
Ann Duff, Member at Large.
Jordan Lebemoff, the 4th District.
And I'm Julie Hollingsworth, elected from District 1. And to my far left is Janet Doherty, the Clerk of the Board. Good evening. And our Superintendent, Dr. Wendy Robinson. Good evening. This is Public Schools Week, and so we're going to deviate from our agenda for just a moment. It's appropriate, I think, since it's Public Schools Week, that we take a moment to recognize Phyllis Bush, who was not only a longtime teacher in Fort Wayne Community Schools, but was a fierce and tireless advocate for public education. Phyllis passed away last week, and but her legacy lives on. She was known not only locally but statewide and nationally as an advocate for public education. So I've asked a couple of our board members who knew her best, Jordan Lebemoff when he was a wee boy and a student at Southside, and then Ann Duff, a colleague of hers on Indiana, is it Indiana Network for Public Education?
Northeast Indiana.
Northeast Indiana Network for Public Education. Jordan?
Mrs. Bush just wasn't a long-standing, respected district teacher. At Southside, she was an icon. She loved her students. She loved her class. She was my freshman language arts teacher. And Mrs. Bush remarkably was there for all of us, to help advise us, to help give us direction when we were lost. You know, there's one thing that Mrs. Bush did which early on, really, I didn't like. And that was every other week I had to turn in a journal entry. And I'm not the type of guy who likes to share. Why am I sharing what I do off campus, out of class? Why am I sharing my feelings? Why am I sharing my emotions with Mrs. Bush? Well, she didn't care. But I quickly learned that what Mrs. Bush was helping me do by writing those journal entries was to find my soul, to define my dreams, and perhaps more importantly, to recognize my fears. She was an icon. She went beyond helping us learn our studies, but she really helped us all grow as young adults. May her memory be eternal.
Thanks, Jordan. Ann?
Jordan is correct. Phyllis was more than a teacher. She was more than an education advocate. She was more than a mentor and more than a friend. Phyllis was special. When she retired, she knew there was more to retirement than walking your dogs or going to book club. She continued to be a powerful force by being a mentor, a leader, and a spokesperson for public education. 8 years ago, she went to Washington, D.C. to attend the Save Our Schools March, and her attendance at that event brought her passion for education to the forefront as an advocate. After she returned from this event, Phyllis, along with Donna Roof and Terry Springer, now retired teachers, formed the Northeast Indiana Friends of Public Education. And Phyllis's voice rang out throughout not only Indiana, as Julie mentioned, but nationwide. She used social media, phone calls, letters, emails, messaging, texting, anything she could to bring people together. She helped form groups in Indiana to help them get a start, to help them fight for public education. Even Diane Ravitch noticed Phyllis's passion, and she recruited her to be part of her national organization she was forming, the Network for Public Education. And Phyllis became a board member on this organization and spent 6 years with Diane working to help with saving public education. Then at NPE's most recent conference, the annual conference in Indianapolis, Phyllis proudly presented the first annual award named in her honor. It was called the Phyllis Bush Award for Grassroots Organizing, and she gave this award to Save Our Schools Arizona. Public education advocates around the nation are certainly mourning the loss of our warrior. But we will continue to fight in her honor as we try to be as courageous as Phyllis. Getting a shout out from Diane Ravitch was always a big honor for Phyllis, but she didn't always want those just for herself. She received many, but she often shared other people's work, their blogs and their posts and their letters with Diane so that Diane would also give them a shout out. One of Diane's most recent shout outs to Phyllis describes what many of us got to experience by being her friend. Phyllis definitely touched our lives. Diane wrote, "Phyllis is surrounded by a large group of adoring friends. They call themselves Phyllis's Minions. They assemble periodically to sing and laugh. I regret that I never got to Fort Wayne to see them perform, but I saw a tape and the love overflowed." Many of us were touched by Phyllis's advocacy, and it always included humor. And I hope that you think of her passion as we continue to fight for our public schools.
Thanks, Ann. And in her honor and memory, let's just have a brief moment of silence. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, it is Public Schools Week, and so the board is recognizing March 25th to the 29th as Public Schools Week 2019. Public Schools Week 2019 celebrates our nation's public schools, our students, and the many school professionals who work to help students achieve their greatest potential. See what we do, which is our Fort Wayne Community School motto, and we invite you to see what we do with a brief video of Fort Wayne Community School highlights. Nice. You know, it's a great reminder that, you know, how many, I mean, the breadth of activities from arts and music and dance and science fair and service, just the ways in which our students and staff touch the community. You know, we're all about academics, but that's also a nice look at, you know, a broad look at the other things that we do. Okay, now we have a very significant award. It's recommended that the board recognize Erica Zerath from Wayne High School. Erica was the first gymnast in school history to place in the IHSAA State Gymnastics Finals. Erica qualified for state with a 4th place all-around performance at Huntington North Regional. Erica placed 2nd in the state on the vault, just 5/100ths from a state championship. Whoa. What is that, like one little toe point or something? She placed 19th on the floor, 14th on the bars, and completed the event, finishing 14th in the state all-around competition. So we'd like to congratulate Erica Zerath, as well as her coach, Caroline Curry, athletic director Gary Raber, principal John Hauser, and who am I? And New Tech principal Emily Oberlin. Snuck in there.
Can I just say something? Talk about quite a ball. Come over here, because some of us have trouble walking. But tell us what the vault is. Oh, just tell us what you do.
Well,
So you run at full speed.
I run at full speed and I jump on a springboard and I do like kind of a cartwheel, but I don't finish, and then I do a backflip and land. So I do a layout suit.
So you're like Supergirl, like you do
Yes.
the flying thing. Well, that makes more sense.
And
Good deal.
Erica, are you a senior?
No, I'm a junior.
You're a junior.
So you'll be
Okay.
back.
Okay.
I get those points.
Yeah, I want my picture on the wall.
All right.
Okay, very good.
That's a
Well,
goal.
good luck.
That's a goal.
State champion.
Hey, you come back.
We'll
when you
look
do
forward
that.
to having you back next year.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Be back for
I
practice.
really did. Phenomenal. I get tired just listening to that.
I could tell that kind of gave you a migraine
Oh,
when
my goodness.
she was describing what she did.
That's impressive.
Okay, next we have the consent agenda, and these are items that come to us every meeting. They include approval of the minutes from March 11th, which board members have seen. They include vouchers and payroll, vouchers for the period ending March 25th, and payroll for the period ending March 1st, 2019, which members have also seen, and the personnel report, which has
An addendum.
an addendum, which I believe Dr. Robinson will probably say something about later.
I will.
So, do we have a motion and a second?
Move approval of the items under the consent agenda, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Glenna. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and Dr. Robinson, was there anything on the personnel report or addendum that you wanted to highlight?
Mainly the addendum. One of the best parts of the year is really seriously planning for the next year. And one of the toughest decisions we have to make are administrative placements. And we are blessed to have had an internship program, and we work very diligently to grow our own, because we think that just everybody can't teach here and everybody can't lead here. So it's with pleasure that I announce the next group of administrative moves that we are making, I'm recommending to the board. The first person is Jennifer Evans. Jennifer's not new, but Jennifer is now she willfully accepted the position of principal at Bloomingdale. Yay. She was introduced this morning. Jennifer began her career in education in 1999 as a sub-teacher for FWCS. She then taught English for 2 years in Southwest. She returned to Fort Wayne Community Schools in, you have to keep standing so we can stare at you, at 2012 as a building coach at Northcrest. And during the 13-14 school year, she served as an administrative intern at Adams. In 2014, she was named principal of Maplewood Elementary. Jennifer received both her bachelor's and master's degree from Indiana University, Fort Wayne. Jennifer Evans. Allison Holland. Allison will become the new principal at Adams Elementary. Allison began her career in education in 2008 as a second grade teacher at John Glenn Schools in North Liberty, Indiana. In 2012, she moved to Plymouth Community Schools, where she served as an instructional technology coach for 4 years. She then moved to Huntington County Community Schools, where she served as a principal at Lancaster Elementary for 1 year. In 2017, she joined Fort Wayne Community Schools as an assistant principal at Brentwood. Allison received her bachelor's degree from Bethel College and her master's degree from Indiana Wesleyan University. I'm not going to, Alex Trevino, I was going to say Alexandria, but Alex Trevino. Alex is being recommended for the principal at Maplewood Elementary. Alex began her education career with the Indianapolis Public Schools as a special ed teacher in 2007. She joined Fort Wayne Community Schools 2 years later as a special ed teacher at Forest Park Elementary. In 2013, she moved to Lindley Elementary as a third grade teacher and became an administrative intern at Adams Elementary in 2016. For the past 2 years, Alex has been the assistant principal at Weiser Park Elementary. She received her bachelor's degree from the University of St. Francis and her master's degree from IPFW. So Alex will be with us at Maplewood. Thank you.
Congratulations and good luck, everyone. Okay, we have no old business, so next we have new business, and the first is 2019 mechanical and electrical projects. It's recommended that the board approve 2 construction contracts at various sites. Mechanical is Shambaugh and Son. There's a base bid for $571,000, an alternate at Lincoln Elementary, an alternate at the Southside Athletic Annex for a total contract of $707,593. Then the electrical projects are with Service Electric of Allen County, Inc. That base bid is $389,908. There's an alternate at Blackhawk, South Wayne, and Studi. There's another alternate at the Southside High School Athletic Annex. Couple of alternates not approved, but total contract for $441,960. The projects include miscellaneous mechanical and electrical work at several buildings. Primary engineering designed both projects. The projects are funded from a combination of the Operations Fund and the 2012 School Building Basic Renewal Restoration and Safety Project Bond. Projects funded from the Operations Fund are identified in the Capital Projects Plan. These recommendations are within the project budget. Project specifications require the work to be completed by July 25th, 2019. And questions will be addressed by Director of Facilities, Darren Hess. You can see on the back the 4 bidders for the mechanical and the 2 bidders for the electrical projects. Do we have a motion and a second?
Move for approval.
Second.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Steve. Any questions? Just out of curiosity, Darren, is this, so this is, part of this is funded from the 2012 bond. Is that kind of just about run that out?
Yeah, we're almost complete. Earlier we had a couple of water coolers that we added bottle fills to. That's the extent of the funding for that project.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have the Northrop Baseball Press Box Building Replacement Project. It's recommended that the board approve the following construction contract for the Northrop Baseball Press Box Concessions Restroom Building Replacement Project. The work is going to be done by Zumbrun Construction Company, Inc. The quote provided to Fort Wayne Community Schools is $44,950, and the quote provided to the Hefner Foundation is $119,500. This is a cooperative effort between Fort Wayne Community Schools and the Hefner Foundation to provide a new press box, restroom, and concessions building at Northrop High School. Plans were provided by Barton Co. Villama Architects and Engineers. The demolition of the existing press box building and the site preparation work, which includes site utilities and concrete foundation, will be funded from the 2016 School Building Basic Renewal, Restoration, and Safety Project. The construction costs of the actual building will be funded from a donation by the Hefner Foundation. Questions will be addressed by Director of Facilities Darren Hess, and you can see the three bids for the part that is being funded by Fort Wayne Community Schools right there. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Thanks, Steve.
Second.
Thanks, Glenn. So, I have a couple questions. Once Krista finishes them. I was wondering about that mic. You just get to stay up here for this.
Yeah.
For this one and a couple more. So, I know baseball and softball are kind of unique. Most of our sports, everybody's pretty much got the same gym. Everybody has the same tennis courts. Everybody has the same track. Nobody has a better, golf course or cross country. But this is one of those things where each gender has its own facility. And of course, I coach softball, so I'm well aware of how a lot of these things, a lot of press boxes got, and restrooms and dugouts got constructed. So my question is, will Northrop's facility be comparable to our other baseball and softball facilities?
I would say comparable, yes. I mean, it's hard to say on all the facilities because some of them are in parks, some of them, none of them are grandiose. I can say that for sure. This one is going to be similar to the softball. We actually modeled it after the softball floor plan at Northrop. It's a concession window, 2 small restrooms, and a storage area, and then the press box up above.
How many of our other softball, baseball facilities have restrooms?
If the Southside Athletic Annex has a restroom building that serves the baseball. The softball is far enough away, we provide porta-johns.
Right.
At Long Road, where Snyder Baseball plays, we have porta-johns. At Northside, for their baseball, they play at Carrington. We do not have restrooms. Northside Park is where Northside girls play, and they do not have restrooms. They use the Scioto Pavilion, I believe. And then Northrop and will have baseball and softball restrooms now. Am I forgetting a high school?
So my concern is...
And Wayne has, they use the stadium restrooms.
Right, right. So my concern is that, because one school is getting this generous donation, we're putting $45,000 into, I can only imagine what kind of softball press box Wayne or Northside could have if they got $45,000. That's my concern, the equity.
And I shared with the board that we are working on a strategic plan that has been recognized. I'm actually starting off my subcommittee this Wednesday with a group for the assessments of facilities. And I know from our very first meeting, equity was talked about quite a bit by many of us. So it's time, it's due for a overall look at facilities. I'm glad we're doing this with athletics. And this is in general with athletics all around with
Right.
Equity and offerings and programs and how we support them. So I look forward to presenting that report to you.
Good, good. And I'm happy to hear that we're doing that, because there is a wide disparity between facilities. You know, some are, you know, outstanding, and some are, I would say, bare minimum. And
If I could add, one of the things, and Faye is responsible for this, we have a person who's looking at pre-K through 12 athletics, because part of the thing we have to, facilities is one big piece. The other is, what is the benefit of athletics and the whole character building part of it? A huge piece is safety. So I think we'll just have a conversation. They're just now getting started, you know, at a point that not much to say at this point. But there's subcommittees, and so all of it will be presented to the board in terms of what does all this mean. It's basically the same conversation we had around turf. As we're, you know, other districts are able to start from ground zero and build from scratch brand-new facilities, and we're in the process of trying to figure out how to renovate and make do with what we have. This is still an area that we need to have just as much of a strategic plan. So we'll bring that back. That's something Faye is working on, and the levels are involved, and Darren's involved. But we're well aware that there's an equity issue.
And you mentioned Carrington, so Northside Baseball and Northside Softball both used to play at Northside Park, right?
That's correct.
So now Northside Baseball has moved out to Carrington, which is out there off of Coliseum East, right?
That's correct.
And so you said that they moved because of some issues at Northside, so can you expand on that? At the
For what
park.
just so I understand that it was difficult to secure the facility and also control security within the park at the time. That's what I understand of it, of why they moved. Plus, they're able to charge admission at our own facility versus a park. I'm not sure at Carrington. I take that back. I know that's one of the
Right.
disadvantages of having it in a park. You can't
Right.
charge admissions.
Right. But, you know, again, you can see my concern. So, you know, Northside Baseball moves to Carrington, but Northside Park is good enough for the softball team. That bothers me.
And I think
And you don't, you know, I'm not blaming anybody. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, it bothers me.
What bothers us is why we started this committee.
Right. And again,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to hear that.
Right. And one of the things that we
and-
also, just if I could, you mentioned the fact that what we committed to the Northrop project. It's kind of hard when you have a community partner to turn down money. And part of what
I
we're
hear that.
responsible for is when we have the opportunity to do that, we don't want to, we never do Taj Mahal, but you want to make it so that it's useful. And that is something that will stand the test of time. We're not having to constantly put money in it. There's a lot of stuff that we just don't even begin to think about because there's no funds for it. But it's a little hard to turn down a community partner giving money. So we
Yeah.
understand exactly what you're talking about.
Madam Chair, just, I welcome your committee, and I think it's long overdue. I think what I heard Julie talking about are issues of equity. I know that when we approved a couple of weeks ago the money for the football field at Northrop, I got a little pushback from friends about why we would be spending money on athletic fields, but it's important because we normally don't do that. And I would assume that the committee may end up recommending improvements to some of our athletic fields. To me, it would be helpful if we could benchmark what other school districts and colleges are doing to upgrade and improve their facilities. The facilities that Indiana Tech has just installed at Calhoun and on the south side of town are very impressive. Their softball field, Julie, if you've not seen it, is very impressive.
I've seen it.
It's very, very nice. But they've decided that strategically, building those facilities is going to be a plus for Indiana Tech. And I would think that what Southwest and Northwest has done with its fields are very impressive too. So I would just encourage us to make sure that as your committee goes about looking at our inadequacies, that we also try to benchmark what our neighbors are doing, because in some ways, they've figured out ways to justify that expense. And I've told people when we were going through the Northrop project that, there's a lot of pathways to get to school. And sometimes it's on a field for band members and for athletes to be recruited to go to school. So, again, we voted on it, but I think it was a good choice and support for us to do so. So I look forward to the work that your committee undertakes.
And I think one of the things the board's going to have to be ready for is we are still struggling. We have not renovated all of our buildings.
Right.
And so we are very careful about what we bring in front of you
Right.
until we have all that done. But I think you mentioned a word that people just don't seem to think Fort Wayne has to worry about, which is competition. And most of the districts around us start from ground zero because they have one high school.
Right.
And so what we're trying to do, and that's a part of the balanced scorecard strategic planning conversation we're having, is we all know the funds, Indiana Tech can build a softball, baseball field. Well, our funds come in different kinds of areas, and that's a conversation we have to have out loud. But we have to weigh and measure what we put in front of you, because for everybody that thinks the turf was a great idea, everybody else is complaining. So we're well aware. We will have that conversation when Faye is ready. I think Faye even maybe just talk about who's on the committee and what kind of work, because I know there's subcommittees. We weren't quite ready for prime time yet.
Oh, yeah.
But this is definitely an area that has to be
Good.
looked at.
And I appreciate that, that we're doing that and taking a look at our facilities and also with equity in mind.
And it's not just, when you use that word equity, it's not just a male-female issue. It's a division between revenue-generating and non-revenue-generating sports, too.
Right.
And so while we take care of our football and basketball fields, we have not had the same attention to our non-revenue generating fields too. So
And we
this
have
is that
5
opportunity.
Right, and we have 5 schools too, so that
Right.
factors into
Right.
it too.
All right. But I
And
wanna-
middle schools, and 11 middle schools, and
and our little elementary babies. But I hope that, as we have press coverage here, the issue isn't about that we are debating whether our facilities should be the best. We have more schools than most, more high schools than most, and we have to prioritize. But we're going to do it in a strategic manner, because it's different to do 1 school than 5. And we have 11 middle schools. And so that's the total package
Yeah.
we have to look at.
And at the same time, I appreciate the support that Northrop has been given in this endeavor. I know that a number of the former baseball players of Chris DeRetti have an annual golf outing. Scott Gidley, who played for him, is one of the ringleaders. And over the years, they've been able to accrue that money to help support the improvements to the baseball field at Northrop. So we appreciate their support too. I know that they have those baseball players, former players there, have that relationship with the Hefner Foundation, and so their support's appreciated.
any other questions, comments? Okay, thanks, Darren. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, next we have the Southside High School Auditorium stage lighting. It's recommended that the board approve the following construction contract for the auditorium stage lighting at Southside High School. This is from Advanced Systems Group, a division of Shambaugh & Son. The total contract is $232,326. The project was designed by Primary Engineering, Inc. and is identified in the capital projects plan with funding from the Operations Fund. This recommendation is within the project budget. Project specifications require the work to be completed by July 25th, 2019. And questions will be addressed again by Director of Facilities, Darren Hess. So you see there the three bidders, and Advanced Systems Group was the lowest bid. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Maria. Questions? Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have the 2019 Lakeside Middle School kitchen and cafeteria renovation. It's recommended that the board approve the following progressive design build services contract for the 2019 Lakeside Middle School kitchen and cafeteria renovation project. Phase 2 services with the guaranteed maximum price progressive design build contract is for $1,053,500. On February 25th, 2019, the board approved Phase 1 design build services with Performance Services, Inc., using the progressive design build process under criteria set forth in the Indiana Public Works design build law. Performance Services provided a Phase 1 report for review with the Technical Review Committee along with final guaranteed maximum pricing on March 14th, 2019. Funding will be from the Nutrition Services Fund, and project specifications require the work to be complete by July 25th, 2019. And Darren's still here. Do we have a motion and a second?
Move for approval.
Second.
Thanks, Glenna. Thanks, Steve. So, briefly, Darren, what's design build, and how's that different than?
So the key in the
Traditional.
design build with that guaranteed maximum pricing, we shift the contractor risk to the contractor design build team and away from the owner. So they will not be coming back to this board asking for a change order for additional funds. So they build that risk in when they do their design, and that shifts that risk. That's the key difference between the traditional design bid build and design build.
Okay, thanks.
How many companies participate in the design build bidding process? I guess it's not the traditional bidding. How do we know this is a good price
We had,
versus, getting 4 bids and picking the lowest one?
there's a good number of firms that do this professionally on private contracts, but also in public contracts. This is the preferred method of Purdue University down Lafayette, how they procure all their projects. We had a competitive Phase 1 on this one with another contractor, which was a couple $100,000 higher than this one, this contract. I feel with the Technical Review Committee, we actually have 2 registered architects on that team, myself and 2 others, that we really, that's part of what we do when we do the technical review, to make sure that they're following our criteria and providing us a price that's within our budget.
And this is within the budget? It didn't specifically say that in the notes?
Yes.
It is, okay. Just. And is the renovation to the cafeteria, is this due to like too many students? It needs to be bigger, or just it's old and it needs to be redone?
Yeah, it's a little misleading, the cafeteria renovation. There's one wall that's getting moved about 4 feet to give us more room in the kitchen. And then we'll have a new serving line which extends into the cafeteria, but unfortunately that's the extent of the renovations in the cafeteria.
Got it. Okay, so then that voids my next question, which is this gonna, restrict the area that the students have, so.
I got to believe that all the experience you've had over the past, 7 or 8 years in construction has really helped us consider design build along with your team, that I think if people come in here, they understand your experience now, that I think the concern may be that they're not going to be able to pull the wool over your eyes.
Well, and the team that we have, they've been there for 6.5,
Yeah.
6 years, 5 years, 4 years, so.
Any other questions? Thanks, Darren. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and last we have the purchase of Internet Protocol security cameras. It's recommended that the board approve the purchase of Internet Protocol security cameras from Presidio Network Solutions Group LLC of Carmel, Indiana for $771,292.11. This purchase is for security cameras at 12 schools and is a continuation of the district transition from analog security cameras to digital IP security cameras at all Fort Wayne Community School buildings. The IP security camera system will provide improved recording resolution and secured remote access for security personnel. The purchase includes servers, installation, a 3-year warranty on equipment, and a 1-year maintenance package. Funding will come from the COPS, Community Oriented Policing Services Grant, and the Operations Fund. And questions will be addressed by Director of Security Mike Manuel. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Thanks, Steve and Ann. So somebody's got to come up with some questions for Mike, because I don't think you've been to the microphone before.
Put him on the hot seat.
So how many of our schools then will be equipped with IP security cameras?
35.
35 out of, remind me, 50, 50?
52.
52. Okay. And what's the, we have a 3-year plan, 5-year plan for bringing the rest of them up to speed, or what?
By the end, it looks like by the end of 2022, we should have all the buildings equipped with the IP protocol cameras and systems.
Okay, great.
And all the schools now, Mike, have some type of security camera.
Yes, they do.
And some may not be fancy as other schools.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. The old analog system, which we can't get on the internet, but that's what we're working towards.
Yeah.
And does this include both exterior cameras and interior?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Both interior and exterior can be viewed within that building, as well as from the security office throughout the district.
Okay.
Once they're on this system, correct.
Great.
Is the state legislatures, is that one bill still alive, the security funds if districts chose? So it's still alive?
Security referendum or
Yes.
security
If we-
grant?
The referendum bill is still alive? So if it passes, might we expedite the fulfillment of going to the newer cameras? Would we consider that?
Well, we could put that in a regular referendum too if we were
Right.
doing a building referendum. So
Okay.
it would depend on if the board wanted to do 2 separate referendums, if we were going after a building referendum, and you'd have to do a campaign and consider the maximum tax rate we want to set, and so there'd be a lot of discussion we'd have to determine
Okay.
if that's the best. But we already have the ability to finance something like that through a referendum. So I had talked to some legislators about this last week, and I think the author of this bill recognizes that it's really not necessary because there are other mechanisms to do it, but their thought is that some communities might want to approve something like that if they thought it was specifically for security purposes.
Okay.
So,
How much of this is covered by the grant, and how much is coming out of the ops fund?
Out of the grant is to the tone of $401,553. Now, that's the total amount of the grant. And then the grant is a 75-25, where Fort Wayne Community Schools is paying 25, and the COPS grant for the safe school measures is paying 75%, and it's a reimbursement grant. So as we move, so the district is coming out about little bit over $100,000.
And what is that COPS grant, the grant, is that some sort of is that state or federal or?
It's a federal grant. It's a federal grant through, and it's for the collaboration between us and Fort Wayne Police Department, the City of Fort Wayne, Fort Wayne Police Department. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
What does the basic price of a camera cost? When you break it down, we got lots of buildings and lots of doors and lots of money going towards cameras. If you, did we get a good deal on our cameras?
Yes, yes. I also have Kenneth Kamak here with me,
All right.
who is in charge of our wiring for the
All
district as
right.
well.
Yeah, actually, most of our cameras are Axis cameras, which are some of the top of the line cameras. They're fixed cameras for the interior, and as far as price is concerned and Axis costs, we got a very good deal on the Axis cameras.
Awesome. Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
And Ken? You looking for a camera for your home, Glenna?
No, I'm just thinking, in this day and age, you can get Simply Safe and install it yourself, so I'm going, dang, we're spending $700,000 on cameras. I hope they got a good deal.
Well, let's see, 12 schools, I bet that's a lot of cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we have no more business. So we have a report, a curriculum update. So Chief Academic Officer Tracy Reed and Curriculum Director Jennifer Mabel are going to provide us with an update on curriculum. And in your packet, you have a copy of the report. Take it away.
Good evening. This evening, I'm going to provide you with an update on the district's curriculum development initiatives that we started last year. And so I have a couple of outcomes. The goals for this evening is essentially to provide you, share with you how the curriculum process has evolved over the past year and to provide you with a current status update on where we are with our curriculum development. So one of the first things that I did as I was reflecting on where we've come over the last year is, if you see on the left-hand side, that was essentially the steps we had in our 2018-2019 process. It was our first time attempting something like this. And so based on the feedback and the information we got back from our teachers, from our curriculum team, from administrators, we recognized that we needed to make some adjustments. And so essentially our adjustments are, if you see the second section down, we have what we call a pre-design work. And our pre-design work essentially started, I want to say, back in the fall, because what we did is we recognized that in order for us to design and develop effective curriculum, we needed to provide, we needed to identify high-quality instructional materials. And so this year we're writing science curriculum, and so we began our science adoption process back in the fall. So that was one of the first things. We also continued throughout the school year. We modified and developed instructional frameworks to align with our math, language arts, and then our science. We designed a new one for our science curriculum as well. As part of the design process, we also, like I said, vetted textbook materials, and this part of the pre-design work also includes some professional learning that actually started last week, and we'll tell you a little bit, give you a little bit more detail about that. And then our curriculum design. Last year we wrote curriculum in July. This year it'll be June. We also recognized that one of the feedback pieces we got was that our teachers didn't get enough feedback right away. And so what we've done is developed a mechanism within our curriculum design structure that allows for coaches and interventionists to have a role of providing feedback to our teachers who are writing the curriculum, so then they can modify the curriculum as they go along. And so we won't wait to the end. Then the second biggest, I want to call it one of the biggest changes we made, is that we will be piloting the curriculum this fall, that the science curriculum that will be newly designed. Actually, science and the math. Any new curriculum written this summer will be piloted. And then we have professional learning that will take place, and I'll give you more information about that as well. And then the next phase is to revise the curriculum. Revision of curriculum will happen after the school year is over. So next summer, part of the revision work will take teachers' feedback who implemented it and make adjustments before we implement it district-wide. So we learned a lot. So when we look at our stakeholder groups who were involved in the process, we recognize that Fort Wayne Community Schools' goal is to build teachers' capacity to design and modify the district's curriculum. By participating in collaborative professional learning with their peers, they will refine their skills and be able to recognize and use quality instructional materials to support rigorous instruction for our students. So here we have some lessons learned that we needed a piloting period. We recognize that high-quality resource adoption is necessary for quality curriculum design.
Tracy, can I just ask you a question? So we hired 2 consulting firms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Centerpoint and Dana Center.
Yes.
Did either one of them suggest piloting?
You know what, I don't recall right now. They may have.
I remember some initial conversations, but I think the idea of piloting something we were doing so quickly, we chose not to. So I know that we had conversations about piloting, but I think
It
what we're
was
trying to
discussed.
but I won't tell you it's a big, long conversation.
Right.
Because the whole process was different. And we were trying to get it done in a much smaller, and we were trying to impact everybody. But if you look at the lessons learned, that was our biggest stumble. And you're going to find one of the biggest groups we did not include, and we should have, were administrators. So I think you're going to, when you get to the end of the report, you'll see we got direct feedback from administrators and teachers about that.
Okay.
But it was not a real long, prolonged conversation, which is why she probably can't remember. It was like, no, we got to do this.
There's always been a sense of urgency around making sure we provide our kids with high-quality, rigorous instruction. And, reflecting on the whole process, we recognize that we probably should have paused a little bit and had that. But now, moving forward, we recognize that. And so we're going to continue with it moving forward.
For all subjects.
Yes.
Every time we adopt a subject.
Right.
This is how we do it now.
Yes. And then lastly, professional learning and connecting content and instructional strategies. I think that's another big takeaway we have from the whole process, is that you can't just change content. You also have to address the instructional strategies that teachers use to implement the content. So our administrators, again, one of our goals, principals and APs will also be participating in NPL to increase their instructional leadership. Effective leadership is necessary to facilitate curriculum implementation and will also provide a deeper understanding of the curriculum and best practice strategies. And we've learned that principal leadership and participation is vital to curriculum assessment and the instructional process. We can't say enough how important that part is to it. And so then our students. Again, ultimately, the goal is to make sure that our kids are college and career ready, make sure that they have the skills necessary. Students will engage in opportunities to apply content knowledge and improve higher order thinking. There will be consistent expectations across grade level subjects and schools. We've had a couple of situations this school year where students transition from one school to another, and we've gotten feedback that it has been a seamless transition because when they left one school and went to another, they were in about the same place. So it wasn't a whole new content, information that they had to learn. And there will be continued opportunities for collaborative work for students in addition to that. Our parents, we realize that there is a strategic focus on communication. We're not quite where we need to be on involving our parents or engaging them the way that they may want to be. And so that's a work in progress. But if you look at, we had a high ability night a few weeks ago. So our parents had consistent materials that was distributed to them. We also had, we have parent night materials that are available to schools. And then we created math study guide because we heard loud and clear from our parents that they needed some support in helping their children with the math. And so we provided study guides for parents. So one of our goals moving forward is to continue to engage parents strategically to make sure that they can help their kids be successful.
Does that include having, maybe math parent night or even a math parent academy for parents who want to learn more about math seems to be the biggest stumbling block sometimes for parents because, it changes sometimes. And are we any closer to doing that?
Yeah.
We are, and I think one of the things that we've recognized too is some of it was occurring, but not consistently. And I think go back to the time when we didn't include the administrators from the beginning. Those administrators that did participate knew how to do that. Those that didn't stumbled a little bit too. So that's a different expectation this year. And so that, when Tracy talked about, and she'll show you what happened on March the 20th, we're taking them along step by step and also telling them what to do with it. So I think it's just, that was one of those huge lessons learned. They're the ones that control the parent nights, and if they don't know what to do at one, that's a stumbling block.
Right. So our first step in implementing the lessons learned occurred March 20th when we had teachers and administrators together. Our curriculum department, under Jennifer's leadership, has supported professional learning. They have 2 more sessions, one in April and one in May. And they're, I think, 2 hours, and she's going to talk about it. I will tell you, it was very exciting for me because it was so many people, but they were, I want to say, in my opinion, they were on fire because they were like really involved and very engaged in the process. So I'm going to let Jennifer talk about that a little bit more.
Thanks, Tracy. So on March 20th, just last Wednesday, we had 355 collaborators signed up to participate along with our administrators. And our outcomes for that night were to focus on high-quality curriculum and understanding what the purpose is for it, and as well as the expectations. And then we also talked about our frameworks, as Tracy mentioned earlier. We've rewritten the literacy framework, the math framework, and the science framework to include what is our philosophy around those content areas, and how does that philosophy impact our work moving forward. So 337 of the collaborators were there on Wednesday. The flu, as you know, is going around, and we have several that are out on maternity leave as well. And then we also had the 600-plus administrators. So in comparison, last year...
600 or 60?
60, sorry. It looked like 600 in the cafeteria. In comparison, last year, we only had 144 teachers, right? So we've doubled that, and we're super excited to have them all be a part of the process. So through that, we defined roles and responsibilities with the collaborators. We also have, as part of a collaborator, a tuning group. And so the tuners are our building coaches, some of our interventionists, some of our special education teachers, some of our instructional support facilitators. Who am I missing? Some special ed teachers, interventionists. So they're part of the process that'll go through, as Tracy mentioned, giving that feedback, that critical friend feedback every day. We participated in an inclusion activity. We developed norms, making sure that all of the groups that are working together know how to work together, and they created their own norms to make sure that they're holding each other accountable for those to be able to move our work forward. And then we introduced the content areas. So on the 17th, which is our next one in April, we're going to continue with building on what we did on the 20th to think about what is that curriculum development plan or our workflow process. And we recognize that we need to start with the assessments and plan backwards. We also have our learning designs that are still embedded in the work that we're doing, and so making sure that that's a part of the process, and then looking at an assessment analysis. And then on May 9th, we're going to look at the LMS and how we're going to use that a little bit differently this next school year, and then also looking at the unit and lesson plan designs.
So you're going to start with the assessment.
So,
And build, that's foreign to me, I've never done that before.
Okay, so
And where are we getting the assessment?
So for example, we did interim assessments this year. So we're going to look at interim assessment number 1 and look and see, does that align to the scope and sequence that's already in place? Are the standards there? Is it at the level of depth that it needs to be at?
Okay,
And-
now,
Go ahead.
you know, there is no assessment, particularly, let's say, the high school level where you have a 55-minute period. You cannot cover all the standards in one assessment, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct. So what we've done is by units, they're chunked, and so we're going to have them peel back and look at those standards, which is one of the learning designs, and then attach that to the assessment to see, does that make sense? Did we cover the standard during that just chunk of time at the appropriate level of complexity? If we didn't, then do we need to change the question, or do we need to rewrite? Is it okay? We move on. So that's what they're going to be doing with that assessment analysis. They'll look at that for interims, they'll look at that with their unit assessments. They can even look at that at some of the formative assessments to make sure everything's covered.
Okay.
I think, because there's still, you said okay, and there was a question in your
Yeah,
voice.
I could see the, yeah.
I think that part of, one of the things we talked about today is we have to always think of it as a curriculum, assessment, and instruction. And assessment's not the concept of state test. It is those quick and dirty assessments that you did as a teacher. It is the assessments embedded in this new curriculum. It is a teacher-made assessment. And what we're trying to get people to know is that you assess learning for learning and to know what to do next. So whether the kids got it and how you need to adjust your teaching. So it's not the concept of assessment that we think about all the time. How do teachers, what methods do teachers use to know what to do next? Because if this is the standards they're supposed to reach by this quarter or that quarter as we chunked them.
So if I say that sounds like we're teaching to the test, what are you going to say?
So it's not about teaching to the test, it's about making sure I know what that end result is and what my kids should know and be able to do as a result of what the state standards say. So in their lesson plans and in the units, it's not geared towards that test. It's geared towards being able to take the knowledge I learn and apply it to the questions on the test and show that I've mastered it.
And see, that's a change in our philosophy, because we spend sometimes too much time remediating when we have no idea that by the end of third grade, what is success for a third grader to go to fourth grade? And sometimes we end up with kids not meeting standards for so long they end up in special ed, because eventually they're going to be able to qualify. So that's a conversation we'll come back around, and that's why we're having these conversations with 337 teachers. Because, first of all, the state changes the test every 5 minutes. But it is, what are the concepts of Algebra 1 that we have to nail for kids to be successful in the next course? And those teachers are going to help us define what that looks like.
Right, because eventually there may be no assessment.
Absolutely.
Correct.
In fact, I would say we're headed that way. I mean, we haven't even decided, the state of Indiana hasn't even decided what the state high school assessment is going to be for, when does that take effect? Is it 2021 or 2022?
2021.
Yeah, 2021, that's what I thought. I mean, could be the SAT, could be the PSAT.
Yep.
Could be something we haven't heard of yet.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's not the test we're talking about.
Right, oh, I know that, I know that. I'm just pointing that out.
Okay, so most of these things are to help you make sure that each student is able to demonstrate that they've mastered whatever it is required at that From
that
that
grade level.
particular lesson in that grade level.
Yes.
So let's just take reading, for example,
Okay.
in third grade. So based on the lessons that you guys are putting together and the different standards that are required in that third grade period, will the kids come out being able to read? Is that one of our requirements, I
Yes.
guess?
I mean, that's one of our district goals, is
Right.
to ensure
I
that
know
our
it's a
students.
goal, but I mean, I'm just wondering about the delivery on our goals.
Yeah, so the intent is to make sure that we reach that outcome.
Right.
And provide the interventions and scaffolding supports that are needed along the way. And so part of what we recognized this past year, and part of why we're doing the revisions this summer, is the fact that there was a heavy emphasis on writing and needing to find the balance between reading and writing. Because in the past, we focused a lot on reading and not as much on writing. And so now it's trying to find where is that balance piece at, so that our kids can continue to get to the 100% of our students reading at or above.
Okay, I'm just.
But I think to Glenda's point.
Because she said we're doing something different now, so we're not going to be doing as much remediating, and we're just going to rely on the scaffolding, and perhaps if they have a special ed designation, they will get interventions, but
Let's go back.
will they just continue on even if they don't master those things and hopefully pick it up in later grades? 'Cause
No.
that's-
No. And here's the difference, and this is about the philosophy. The reason we changed the curriculum and the reason instructional practices have to go, let's just take high school. If you wait until the first quarter to tell a child they are failing Algebra 1, you missed all those opportunities all along the way, because it could have been on one day they struggled on a concept. If teachers know what concepts kids have to scaffold and build and tie together to be successful, then what strategies do teachers have to address it right when that student is struggling? So we have to provide teachers more tools, because we have a diverse district, and if we're trying to make sure that kids are mastering it. So the whole concept of intervention, special ed is not our favorite mode of intervention. There are kids who are going to struggle depending on the topic. So what we're talking about is every single day, how do we have teachers help those kids that may have just missed a concept? If they just missed all the concepts, that's a different thing. But those of us know, and those of us who've taught, but teachers need resources, because I may not have time to go research all of that. We're trying to embed that within the lessons. That's the main difference. We're not waiting to the end of the quarter or to the end of the semester to have them repeat Algebra 1, because we didn't have tools to help them with what part of Algebra 1 they were missing for a semester. That's a shift for us. And that's why so much professional learning is necessary, because you can't blame the teachers if they don't have the resources to do it. But we also can't just keep failing kids and have them repeat.
I like the idea of being on top of things. I just was trying to understand the difference between, what we've done in the past and what we're trying to do now. Thank you.
5 things. Thank you for the update. Thank you for acknowledging that we moved too quickly, and piloting is a really good idea, because I think in many ways it bit us in the butt this year with negative reactions from classroom teachers and parents. What the hell is going on? I like the fact that we have more, what do you call them, collaborators?
Curriculum collaborators,
They're writers.
formerly known as curriculum writers.
Formerly known as.
Yeah.
Reinvented.
I like the other thought is, and I didn't hear too much about it, but I think you acknowledge the fact that we need to do a better job of communicating with our parents. And the fact is, they don't come to meetings. And I think you've got to pull Jennifer and/or Krista into this concept of communicating on a level and on a platform that parents get. And it's in small little bits, whether it's, I don't know what social platform it is, but I think we've got to reach out to parents more that way. The other part of that, and we've talked a little bit about it back and forth here, and that is the expectations of students have changed. And it's not just the fact of what the state has said, it's the expectations of what business is saying. And so, you know, I don't have much sympathy for that parent or that student who comes crying to us about the fact that they were a straight A student and all of a sudden they're struggling. Get over it. And I think people have to understand that we're doing this for a reason, right?
Yes.
It's a tough world. It's a different world. And so I just, but the obligation and responsibility is on us to communicate, repeat that message. And in a way that parents are going to get it, and our staff. So anyway.
Yep, agree.
And to Steve's point, I have a student advisor, and some of you have been a part of that. The first group, the absolute first group we have to work with directly are students. Because sometimes parents get messages from students if they're not understanding the shift. And we have got to start, we can't wait till high school. So these conversations are about what in elementary, how do we encourage kids? We're looking at stuff we got to do differently in the summer. Because it's not just the drill and kill or the summer because I failed it. What opportunities? And we know that if we don't nail this coming out of second grade into third grade, to shift how kids think about what they can do and can't do. So we are trying to say that, but that student group is really the absolute primary group. We have to empower kids to know what they need to do themselves to be responsible, and then how they can get help.
I just have one other question. We embarked on this process. We were going to revise our math, revise our literacy and language arts, and then now we're going to incorporate the science. So the first year, the rollout ran into a few bumps, but they're being ironed out. And you've been doing, what have you noticed has been the best part of the changes that we've made?
I would say that's hard to choose one. I'll stick with the writing piece. The comments we have heard from kindergarten teachers, first grade teachers, second grade teachers, that students are able to write full sentences and paragraphs so much sooner than they were able to last year. And in fact, they have recognized that they even came in with the mindset of our kids can't do it because we haven't taught them this, and this. And when you go in with the mindset of, hey, I'm going to teach to hear, and our kids can get to hear, they prove that they can. So I think that's probably been the biggest takeaway when I've been out walking buildings and just seeing the writing across. I have a kindergarten son and the stuff he brings home, and being able to read. And we were just talking about the foundational reading pieces and making sure that if you teach a certain chunk of letters first, kids in kindergarten can start writing words. And then when you add the next layer, they can write sentences. So it's really getting that piece going. So I would say, especially at the elementary level, the writing has grown a lot this year.
So the last piece, we just wanted to remind you of what we have planned for this summer. All of the curriculum that was written last summer will be updated and revised this summer. So part of the curriculum collaborators will be revising last year's curriculum, and then we will also be writing new curriculum for middle school language arts, for elementary math, and middle school and high school science. So that will be new curriculum that will be developed and then piloted for next school year. And we just added some pictures so you could see how many people we had. It was a lot of people. At Snyder, the whole cafeteria was full, so.
I do have a question. I've been approached about the use of Agile Minds. And are we revisiting the use of that, or how it's put into the lesson plan and how we're using it for support for the students? And can you just tell me a little bit about how we're going to change that or improve that?
So we're going to continue to use Agile Minds. One of the things I mentioned earlier about high-quality instructional materials, specifically textbooks. And that was one of the challenges when we wrote math curriculum, is that we could have probably, when we initially chose a textbook series, we could have picked probably something else that was a little bit better suited to meet our needs. And so we didn't do that. So we needed something to fill in the gaps. And Agile Minds was what was decided. What we recognize is that when you add something new, you have to modify your practice. This was something that was a huge shift for people. And so we're going to continue to provide support for teachers around using this tool, and continue to move forward. I think the representative from Agile Mind has been to all of our secondary schools this year, at least once, maybe twice, this school year. So, and we've heard some positive comments from her being out and supporting schools.
Okay, great, thank you.
And one of the main reasons that we changed this curriculum process is, just remember what Tracy said, if you don't start with quality and material, quality instruction material, you can't write a quality curriculum. So 6 years ago, when we chose the math adoption, it wasn't the right one. And we've struggled ever since, and we've created some bad habits, and we didn't have the kind of professional learning. So those are all lessons learned, and I appreciate Steve recognizing that everything people ask us, we've tried to address and let people know where we thought we were at fault and what we've done to correct those things.
So lastly, I'll leave you with a quote: alone we can do so little, together we can do so much more. And basically, with teachers, administrators together, working together, we're going to better be able to serve our kids and provide them with a high-quality education. So thank you.
One additional question. One of the complaints I heard from teachers is that, there was, for example, a unit test, that there was only one electronic test. And for a teacher to come up with a second test was just so time-consuming that it was nearly impossible to do. And so, for a makeup test or for a second chance at a test, that was really hard for teachers to come up with.
Okay.
So is there going to be any look at, improving that, the mechanism for creating an assessment?
So I'm not sure if you mean the interim assessments we provide throughout the year.
I'm talking about like the unit test.
Okay, so we do have an item bank. The teachers can pull questions.
Yes, I am aware of that, but
Okay.
the complaint was that to try to come up with an equivalent test from the item bank was very time-consuming.
Okay.
And of course, they were new to the curriculum. I mean, it's possible with a year's experience under your belt, that process might be, easier. But, so is there any?
Well, I think that would be a part of the professional learning that will happen over the course of the school year. There will be assessments developed and embedded it within the curriculum. So, and then additionally, as part of it, Jennifer mentioned utilizing the district's technology, whether it's the item bank, the LMS, to be able to have resources available for teachers who want to be able to create their own formative assessments. That would be something that would be a part of the curriculum professional learning that we provided as a district.
Yeah, because, you've said that in this coming summer, they're going to revise the curriculum that was developed last summer. So does that include assessments?
Yes.
Are all assessments still online?
I don't think so.
Like unit?
No, not all of them.
Good. Okay, you can call me old or you can call me old-fashioned, but I still say that mathematics, the physical process and the mental process of learning mathematics, there's still great benefit to paper pencil activity.
Right, I agree.
And a concern of mine is that we were not doing enough of that.
Okay. Yeah.
I had a question with regard to the piloting the new curriculum. Is that going to be done with students like, when and where are we going to be asking for students to come in over the summer and sit down with material, or how are we piloting the new curriculum?
So the teachers who write are the teachers whose students will participate.
Yeah,
So
they'll pilot it in their class.
they'll pilot it in their classroom.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I wrote the question down and then you answered it later. I came back to it and forgot that you already answered it. Okay.
Another lesson we learned, because we've had people say, if I don't write, can I just start? Well, like the science, everybody will have the textbook, but only the ones who wrote will pilot. And we learned a huge lesson there. Because sometimes the missteps you take are because you didn't attend the professional learning, and you're trying to do it without some background knowledge. So people kind of complain about that. If you didn't write it and you're not a part of the PO, you're not a part of the pilot, so we can actually have some apples and apples kinds of conversations, and then before everybody has to do it. That was the biggest thing we learned. So, thank you, ladies.
Could I ask
Thank
one
you.
more quick question? On this one, on page 2, you talk a lot about high-quality resource adoption and finding high-quality instructional materials. What process is that? Is that each teacher then going online and trying to find materials to support their lesson plan? Or is this something that the teachers who are writing the curriculum are going to all get together and share what they've used? Or what's the process behind finding high-quality instructional materials?
So some teachers come to the table, and I think last year they recognized that they come prepared with some things that they use, and then there's some collaboration and discussion about whether or not that is the appropriate resource. Is a process that we went through to identify, say, our science textbook. If we were doing a math textbook or science, the curriculum department has created a process for identifying vetting materials, and Jennifer can speak to that more specifically. But we recognize teachers come in with a lot of resources and knowledge to the curriculum development process, and they have to recognize and work through a process to determine whether or not those resources have the level of rigor. So that's some of the protocols and the discussion that goes on with the curriculum or curriculum collaborators during that time. So some, yes, they can bring some. I know last year we had a lot of teachers wanted to read certain texts with their class, and there was a lot of conversation on whether or not it was had enough rigor. Did it meet the standards that were trying to be taught during, say, language arts class. And so there's a process that they go through to make sure that those materials are appropriate. You want to add anything to that? I just know that there is a lot of discussion around resources and material, and to make sure that we have enough rigor for our kids to meet those standards.
But Jennifer, why don't you talk about the state process?
Sure.
Because there is a process that even is before that. What Tracy described is how we make sure the teachers, who are also experts, have input. But Jennifer, start with what the state requires us to do as we move forward.
With the textbook adoption process. So every 6 years, we have to look at adopting new material. And for example, with science, we were behind where we needed to be. Some of that was because of this changes in the state standards. And so this year, we created a 3-part gateway system that every time we had publishers in front of us, there was a rubric based upon what we identified as the needs for our district, aligned to the state standards. Also looking at the new process and engineering standards that are out there for our students, as well as connecting it with STEAM and STEM, the 5E model. We looked at the phenomenon that needed to be out there as well, embedded in science. And so based upon those gateway processes, there's teachers that are part of that committee, 1 rep from each of our elementary buildings. The middle schools also have reps, and then we had multiple reps at the high school level because of the different courses that are there. And so they would come and have meetings with publishers. Publishers would share their information. The teachers would then rate it based upon our rubrics. And then if they made it through that first gateway, then we had another set of criteria that they had to meet for the second gateway, and then into the third. And then that decision is made based upon everything that they have seen. That is totally different than we've had in the past. Teachers have been a part of the process, publishers had come in, but the intentionality of the work and making sure that it was really drilled into where we needed to head, not just for this next school year, but trying to forecast what's happening and what's coming. So we really had to spend some time. We worked with Ed Reports because they're known for their review of material. And so that goes back to, Glenna, to your conversation. When a teacher brings us a piece of resource that could potentially be used, we go out to What Works Clearinghouse, we look at what's on Ed Reports, and we go to those reputable areas that say, yes, even John Hattie, what level of impact is this going to have on our students if we use this resource in the classroom? So there's a lot of things that we use to make sure that we vet that properly and make sure that what's in teachers' hands is what's needed.
Okay, so this process that we're doing right now will actually be in place then for 6 more years?
For science, yes.
For science?
Yes.
Okay.
So next year, we'll go through that same gateway process for social studies. It'll look a little bit different because it's a different content area.
Yep.
But we'll be writing that framework for social studies, and then we'll get in that cycle. So when it's time to adopt math and English, we'll have that same gateway process.
And then at what level do parents get engaged with this process?
So when we adopt the new material, we'll bring it to you for approval, and then parents are informed through parent nights that they can have at the elementary level, communication from the schools to the families with regards to the material that we've adopted. In science specifically, there's going to be kits that elementaries are used to having, but that's now built into our adoption material, and so making sure that they're aware of things that are coming home, here's how you can help, just making sure that they're informed of here's where we chose to go and why.
Okay, but so they have no input on the selection process, it's just after we've adopted it?
Correct.
Then you roll it out?
Yes.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, and we have had parents in the past, from what I understand, be a part of the process. However, it was never consistent, and not always do parents understand what the state is expecting of us and what needs to be there, and so sometimes it's skewed a little bit, some of the decisions that were made. So we just need to make sure that if we bring parents back in, that we do a little bit of learning with them up front.
Well, if you're doing the first 3 gateways, then hopefully by the time you're narrowing it down, you can check with parents to see if it's user-friendly or understandable or something they can grasp.
Right, absolutely.
But I think the thing that we have to do is to write it in a language for parents that's different than the language for teachers. And that became part of the problem when you included parents in trying to do a textbook adoption. They were looking at it from totally different perspectives. But I think the part that we're trying to say is, and I'll go back to, students also have to have a voice in whether this stuff makes sense for them. And so the parent and student pieces we're going to have to, all along the way, talk about.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Okay, well, that brings us to the close of our meeting. We don't meet again until April 22nd. There must
Wow.
be some reason we're not meeting for nearly a month. I imagine a lot of people are looking forward to, what is spring break?
Spring
Week after next?
Next week.
Next week?
Friday.
I'm leaving Saturday.
Next week?
Next week.
Really? Oh my gosh. How'd that get here so soon?
I don't know.
Okay, so, board member comments.
Sure. Saturday was at Wayne High School for the Be Instrumental program, and it was, I think it's always good that we give students that opportunity to perform in public. And so we saw a number of groups. Maria Norman was there, Faye Williams-Robbins, Kathy Friend, Renee Sloan from Sodexo, a bunch of other folks. It was a good time, and thanks to Melanie Hall for organizing that. One more story about Phyllis Bush, and I appreciated the stories you told. But Phyllis made Fort Wayne #1 in getting students admitted to a summer program at IU. She worked with me through Latinos Count, and college-bound juniors with at least a GPA, a grade point average of at least 2.7, had an opportunity to apply for this summer academy if they could write an essay. And Phyllis was there with me in our classrooms at South and Wayne and North and Snyder. And over the first 5 years that she was involved, we had more students admitted to the program than any other school district in the state of Indiana. And it was her touch with students, and her ability to help them communicate, as you said, Jordan, about themselves and why they were so special and why they were so deserving of being admitted into that program. Phyllis Bush made Fort Wayne #1 in that program, and that reputation carries with the program today because of her work.
That's cool, Steve. Thanks for sharing that.
So I had an opportunity to hook up with the students that were here from Tacoca, and when they went out to Sweetwater, they had a tour out there. First of all, it's just an amazing facility, and we in Fort Wayne and region are very fortunate to have a corporate sponsor like Sweetwater that gives so much back to the community. But it was just really neat to see the kids hang out together, even though there's a big divide because of the culture. Music can bridge that. It's universal language and the interests, and obviously the facility itself is just fascinating. So that was a very enjoyable morning that I got to spend with the kids, and that was fun.
Cool.
As Steve mentioned, I was able to go to the Be Instrumental event on Saturday. It was great to hear all of the students, and thank you to Wayne for hosting that, and the students that had to set up the stage in between each production. They definitely got their steps in that morning, but it was great to have all of the bands there from the different levels in one location to hear that. So it was just really great to hear the level of improvement from middle school to high school, and those teachers definitely put in their work, and so it was just really great and exciting. My son was able to go, and so it was great to share that experience with him, to let him know that, if you dedicate yourself to an instrument, that these are the types of outcomes that you'll have, and you get to perform on the big stage. And then as a Elmhurst graduate, I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of Don Goss. He was a long-time art teacher there at Elmhurst High School. I know that he touched the lives of many students at Elmhurst and was really involved in community theater here in Fort Wayne as well, but just a longtime resident of Fort Wayne, and through Facebook saw that he touched the lives of many students, me and my sisters included. So just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Goss.
And a former Fort Wayne Community School Teacher of the Year, too.
Yes. Great.
Jordan? Dr. Robinson?
I also had an opportunity to be at Wayne, and went from what was an absolutely joyous occasion. I represent the district. Steve Belair passed, and his services were Saturday. Steve left the district and went to work for a charter organization, but I think we'd be remiss not to talk about the contributions he made to the arts in Weiser Park and Memorial Park and all of those different institutions we have. So his family was appreciative, but Steve did pass.
Yeah. Did we film that music program on Saturday? Is it available on YouTube?
Yeah,
Does anybody know?
I can check.
we'll check. If anybody thought about it, it was Bruce. And he's one of those unsung heroes. Bruce was hired to work through, be instrumental. And one of the things we'll share is he has a spreadsheet for what needs to happen next.
Wow.
And so I just think we don't talk enough about Bruce.
Maybe next, maybe next fall, we can get, because it seems like so much, is happening sometimes so fast, maybe we can get an update on that.
We should, and I think he needs to come, because part of even, the thing I think, which is a good challenge to have, we've outgrown facilities. We have so many kids at Lakeside and Lane in
That's awesome.
particular that there's no place to store their instruments, and kids are hanging out of windows almost. But the quality of music and what's happening would be instrumental. We've added another allocation. Miami's going to get another half teacher because the program is growing.
Wow.
That's great.
So,
That's
yeah,
great.
we need to get Bruce in front of
Problems to have.
and talk through that.
Okay.
It's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Yes,
It's a wonderful
yes,
problem.
yeah. As soon as the governor signs the bill that passed both the House and the Senate, we will have Jennifer McCormick will have the honor of being the dubious honor, I think, being the last elected superintendent of public instruction in Indiana. And she's coming to Fort Wayne, is it April 18th?
I think so.
I think April 18th, out at Ivy Tech in that evening, so you might want to mark that date on your calendars to get to hear from her and ask any questions of her. But as some of you are aware, within the bill, there is no requirement that the new, what will become Secretary of Education in Indiana, have experience in education. So that's
No ed background, huh?
disappointing to those of us who are in public education. On the bright side, if you're upset with the direction of education in Indiana, at least you know who to blame. The governor.
The governor.
All up to the governor. Everybody
Will
appointed.
have to own education now.
What's that, Glenna?
The governor will have to own education.
That's right, governor owns it. That's right, governor owns it. And Kathy, something kind of, every time I hear another budget update, it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. First there was the announcement that there's going to be less complexity money, for whatever reason. Then there was the bill, and maybe you can give us a brief synopsis of it. It's the bill that has to do with the waiver on the, you explain it. I can't even explain it. I kind of understand it, but just talk about it and what its effect could be for us.
Okay. What the waiver does is allows you to take the circuit breaker loss that a school district has and to shift some of that burden away from the
Okay,
operations fund
okay.
into the debt funds. And, but it only is non-referendum debt because referendum debt doesn't have a circuit breaker impact.
Right.
So you only can shift to non-referendum debt. So in our case, we are not able to use that waiver anymore because our non-referendum debt has gone down so low. So.
And is it 10% the threshold
Well,
right now?
the threshold
But the-
is 10% now, and it goes to 40%
Right, they
with
put
the
a-
new, yeah.
Yeah.
So your ability to participate in the waiver has changed. I think I heard 71 school districts maybe are losing the ability to use the waiver, something
Right.
like that. I shouldn't be quoted on that, but quite a number of school districts have lost the ability to do it. So, so we would have been one that would have lost the ability to do it had we really been able to do it recently, so.
Okay, so.
But it
Right
doesn't,
now, it doesn't affect us, but,
but it does affect a lot of other school districts.
Right.
And so we are concerned about it for them. But it is not, not something we've been able to use for the last couple of years.
okay.
If I could add, if you just pay attention to boards around us of very small districts are really struggling because we have some economies of scale But if you've got 3 buildings in your district and you're still trying to provide a community education, and the funding isn't there and the complexity isn't there, because there's a lot of complexity in rural districts. And I don't think people are aware of how this is going to impact our ability in the state to provide public education. So it's not just, I mean, yes, but when Kathy speaks, and I want to applaud her for that, she doesn't just speak for us. She tries to explain how it's impacting. But some of the rural communities around here, I don't know how they're going to keep their doors open with, if it just keeps getting chipped away. So.
I agree. And the state says the solution is to consolidate, but then, you know, maybe, I don't know if anyone else read the article the other day about the Christian school in Delaware County that has 6 students, and they're operating in a condemned building. You know, there was a kerosene heater operating in the middle of the classroom. Wall heaters, you know, plugged into the wall. I mean, so they're fine with a school like that with 6 students. That's just, as Phyllis Bush would say, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And I have nothing else. Do we have a motion?
Move for adjournment?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The microphone is open if anyone wishes to address.